Hey guys, tonight we're not trailing knights or eavesdropping on lords. We're stepping into the damp, gritty shadows of a medieval castle, where life hums through calloused hands that scrub and haul before dawn dares to show. Picture it. Cold stone bites your skin. A faint ember glows in a crumbling hearth. The air heavy with grease and stale broth. You're a scullery maid, the lowest soul in this stone maze. Your day, starting with a shiver and an empty bucket. You probably wouldn't last a day in her world. Let's be honest. She barely does. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. I love seeing how these quiet tales reach you across the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake, not to a bell or a bird, but because the stone floor you've been using as a bed has drained every ounce of warmth from your body. The kitchen hearth, your only ally against the cold, is a sad pile of ash, and the air feels like it's holding a grudge. You're a scullery maid, which means you're less a person and more a tool for scrubbing, fetching, and soaking up blame. Your shift, a scratchy wool rag that passes for clothing, sticks to your skin, damp from last night's spill, or maybe just your own exhaustion. It's been washed once this year, maybe, and carries a whiff of burnt fat, moldestraf, and a hint of despair. You roll off your burlap sack, stuffed with straw so old it crumbles, and stand on legs that already protest. The cook, a woman who could scare a battering ram, stomp past, her elbow grazing you like a warning shot. Your first job is fire, no flame, no food, and the castle starves. You stumble outside, barefoot, because your shoes rotted away last winter and now plug a draft in the scullery wall. The courtyard is pitch black, flagstones slick with frost. Each step a jab to your soles. You grab kindling from a pile by the smokehouse, splinters catching your numb fingers, and drag it back to the hearth. Kneeling, you coax a spark from damp twigs and stubborn hope. Whispering complaints you hope stay between you and the embers. The fire flickers to life, spitting sparks, and you warm your hands until they no longer look like they belong in a grave. Historians still argue whether scullery maids were truly unpaid or just bartered their lives for bread and a corner to sleep in. But you're not counting coins anytime soon. Water is next. The castle has no plumbing. Just you. You sling a wooden yoke over your shoulders, its weight biting your collarbone, and trudge to the well. Buckets slosh, heavy with gallons, tugging your arms like they owe them money. 4 trips before the cook even shows, her voice slicing the dawn like a blunt axe. No one thanks you. No one meets your eyes. You're a chair that breathes. Nothing more. A kitchen maid, just a step above you, snatches a bucket you filled and smirks. You imagine her tripping into a cauldron. But you keep moving. Pots are waiting. The scullery is a cave of grease and gloom. A single window, choked with soot, traps the smell of overboiled meat and something you'd rather not name. You kneel by a basin, scrubbing pots with ash and sand, because soap is for lords and legends. Your knuckle crack. Your hands sting from lye someone made last week. And the rats, bold as bandits, dart across the table. You smack one with a ladle, and it glares like you've ruined its day. By mid-morning, you're chopping onions, which is just a fancy way of crying for free. Your eyes burn, tears mixing with sweat, and the cook snaps. You're too slow. You bit your lip, because moothing off means latrine duty, and you'd rather weep than wade through that. Noon brings the noble's meal. You haul trenchers to the hall, balancing plates of roasted meat and soft bread you'll never taste. Eyes down, always, because nobles hate knowing you have a face. You stand, arms numb, holding a pitcher no one needs. After, you clear their mess. Bones, chewed crusts, a fish that's more mystery than meal. You hide a scrap in your apron, eat it in a corner, chewing like a thief. A kitchen maid spots you, and now latrine pots are your afternoon. Lucky you. You've hit the medieval jackpot. Afternoon melts into evening. More water. More pots. More rats. You mop floors. Sweep halls. Get blamed for a dog's mess in a room you've never entered. The cook's spoon looms like a judge's gavel, ready to crack if you miss a speck. Dinner prep is madness. Pots clang. Smoke stings. Someone drops a tray, and you smother a stray flame with your apron. You eat from a shared bowl. Thin stew, with a lump that might be hair. You don't question it. You swallow. Night settles. And dishes stack like accusations. You scrub until your hands tremble. Grease, clinging to pans like a curse. The cook grunts. Your cue to crawl to your sack by the hearth. You press against the warm stone. Tunic still wet. Smelling of smoke and onions. Someone sobs nearby. But you don't look. You don't need to know. Staring at the embers. You think of a life before this. Maybe your mother churned butter till her hands gave out. Maybe your aunt froze by a river, washing noble linens. This is your legacy. Suffering served with a side of silence. Here's a hard truth. Scullery maids rarely lived past 30. Their bodies broken by hunger and toil, and the odd bit, some castles used stale urine to clean pots. It's ammonia cutting grease better than ash. You don't climb out of this life. No chef's hat. No fairy tale prince. You just keep going until you can't. But there's a quiet strength in it. The castle eats because you light the fire. Because you drag the water. Because you scrub until your hands bleed. No one carves your name in stone. But without you, the whole place collapses. You twitch in sleep, dreaming of meadows, streams, hands that don't ache. The cook's boot nudges you awake. The floor cold again. Another day. Same as yesterday. You grab your bucket. Move. The rats scatter. They see you. Even if no one else does. Section 2. Spitboy's fiery vigil. You're still in the castle's underbelly, where the air hums with the clatter of pots and the faint crackle of a hearth that never quite dies. The scullery maid's buckets are still sloshing in your memory. Her hands raw from scrubbing. But now you step into a different kind of heat. You're the spit boy, crouched by a roaring fire, turning a heavy iron rod that sizzles with roasting meat. Your world is flame, sweat, and the endless rhythm of a crank that never stops. The nobles above feast on the fruits of your labor. But down here, you're just a shadow in the smoke. Arms burning, eyes stinging, keeping the roast spinning or facing the cook's wrath. You're maybe 10 years old, small enough to duck under beams, old enough to know pain is part of the job. Let's be real. You'd probably faint from the heat in 10 minutes. Unlike the scullery maid, who at least gets to freeze outside. But there's no time to dwell on that, because the fire's already licking at your tunic. You wake on a straw pallet shoved against the kitchen wall. The heat from the hearth, baking one side of your body while the other shivers. The dogs, those turnspit mutts you'll meet later, snore nearby, their paws twitching like they're still running in their dreams. You sit up, Your tunic, a singed, grease-stained rag, sticking to your skin. It smells like every roast you've ever turned duck, in boar, goose, all blended into a perfume no noble would bottle. Your hands, already blistered, sting as you flex them, and your back creaks like a rusty hinge. You're not sure if you're 8 or 12. No one keeps track. Least of all you. The cook's voice, sharp as a cleaver, cuts through the dark, yelling for you to get moving. You scramble to your feet, dodging a stray ladle she flings for emphasis. Your job is the spit, a long iron rod speared through whatever beast is destined for the Lord's table. You perch on a wobbly stool, if you're lucky enough to have one, and start turning, slowly, clockwise, always clockwise, unless someone screams otherwise. The fire roars, unnaturally hot, like you're sitting inside a baker's oven. Your cheeks flush red, your hair dampens with sweat, and the hem of your tunic is charred from too many close calls. You used to love the smell of roasting meat, back when you were a shepherd's son. Maybe, before the castle claimed you. Now it gives you headaches, a dull throb that matches the rhythm of the crank. Historians still argue whether spit boys were orphans or just surplus children that sold off by desperate families. But either way, you didn't choose this. The kitchen is chaos, a storm of shouting, boiling, and clanging. Maids rush with trays. The cook swings her spoon like a warhammer, and you sit in the eye of it all, turning, always turning. If you slow down, the meat cooks unevenly, and the steward who smells like wine and bad decisions will blame you. If you stop, the spit jerks, the roast slips, and you're scrubbing floors with your own tears. Once, a noble accused you of turning with insufficient dignity, and you got a turnip to the head for blinking too much. You don't blink much anymore. Just squint through the smoke. The weird bit, some castles used goose fat to grease the spit's gears, which attracted rats that you had to shoo off mid-turn. Imagine that, fending off rodents while keeping a pig spinning. Your arms ache, your knees lock, your back knots into something a carpenter couldn't untangle. The fire doesn't care. The meat doesn't care. The nobles, laughing in the hall above, definitely don't care. They want their goose crisp, their boar tender, and they don't want to know about the boy who made it happen. You get burns, constant ones, blisters on your palms, singed eyebrows, a forearm that looks like overcooked bacon. You wrap rags around your hands, but they slip, and the cook doesn't stop to offer bandages. She just yells, "Don't drip on the meat." You learn to dodge the flames, or at least to flinch less when they catch you. Midday brings a rare mercy. The roast is done. You help heave it off the spit. Grease sizzling, fat dripping onto the hearthstones. You flinch, and the cook snaps at you for hesitating. Then it's on to the next beast. A duck, maybe, or a whole deer for a feast. On big days, you're not alone. Another boy, maybe with a lazy eye or a mean streak, joins you. Last month, your partner let go of the crank just to watch you scramble. He's gone now. Maybe to the kennels. Maybe worse. You don't ask. You just turn. A grim fact: spit boys often developed twisted spines from years of hunching. Their bodies warped by the time they hit 20. If they hit 20, you don't get breaks. Not real ones. Sometimes, someone tosses you a bone, literally. A gnawed rib with a scrap of meat. You huddle in a corner, eating like a stray dog. Then go back to the spit. By afternoon, your lips crack, your hands shake, and you've inhaled so much smoke, Your cough sounds like a blacksmith's bellows. The kitchen maids, darting past with jugs of ale, don't look at you. The butcher's boy, who smells like blood and smugness, ranks above you and lets you know it. Even the rats seem to pity you, though they still steal your crumbs. Evening comes, and the nobles feast. You hear their laughter, faint through the stone ceiling. As you haul trays of half-eaten meat back to the kitchen, you don't eat it. You scrape it into a slop bucket for the pigs. You sneak a crust. Maybe. But if you're caught, it's latrine duty, and you're already too tired to survive that. You clean the spit, heavy and still warm, dragging it to the scullery where the maid from yesterday glares like you've ruined her life. You rinse goblets, stack trenchers, and start another roast for the Lord's hounds. The dogs eat better than you tonight. As usual, night settles. The kitchen quiets. The cook's yelling fades to a grumble. You scrub the tools, knives, hooks, the spit itself, until they gleam. Because the steward's rounds are merciless. A smear of fat means you're cleaning with spit, or worse. You collapse by the hearth, too sore to lie flat, too wired to sleep. Arat scuttle past, and you don't flinch. You're too tired to care. You think of a life before this. Maybe herding sheep. Maybe a miller's son. Maybe your parents still live. Maybe they forgot you. You don't know. You just turn. Winter's worse. The fire's heat battles the draft, roasting one side of you while the other freezes. Your feet, wrapped in rags, go numb in puddles. Summer's no better sweat drips into your eyes. And the kitchen feels like a dragon's maw. Your cough is permanent now. Your skin peels from heat rash, then cracks in the cold. You smell like scorched fat. And the other servants step wide around you. The steward nods sometimes. Your only praise. You dream of leaving. But spit boys don't leave. They grow into cooks. If they're lucky. Or they don't grow at all. You curl up by the dying fire. Your tunic, stiff with grease. Your hands black with soot. You stare at the coals, wondering what it's like to be warm without hurting. Outside, snow falls. Inside, Fotzi's lesh. And you, forgotten, keep turning in your mind, even as sleep pulls you under. The castle's fed, the fire's low, and for now, that's enough. You hope. Section 3. Gong Farmer's Nightly Toil. You're still deep in the castle's hidden world, where the scullery maid's raw hands and the spit boy's charred tunic linger in your thoughts. Now, you slip into a darker, fouler corner, where the air turns sour and the night is yours alone. You're the Gong Farmer, the medieval term for someone who shovels human waste from cesspits under flickering torchlight. Your task is to keep the castle from choking on its own filth. A job so grim, it's done in secret. When honest folks sleep, the scullery maid scrubs until her knuckles bleed. The spit boy roasts beside the meat. But you wade through what they leave behind. No one sees you. No one thanks you. And frankly, you prefer it that way. The stench is your constant companion, and the night is your domain. You wake at dusk, not because you love the dark, but because daylight is too gentle for your work. Your cot, tucked in a shack beyond the castle walls, smells of damp wool and quiet despair. You pull on layers of coarse cloth, stuffed with straw to block the smell, though it never does. The odor clings like a hex, seeping into your skin, your hair, your sleep, your tools, a rake, a bucket, a shovel, wait by the door, crusted from yesterday's toil. You grab them, sling a rope over your shoulder, and step out. The castle looms, its torches glowing like suspicious eyes. The air bites, cold and sharp, cutting through your tunic as you cross the silent courtyard. No one nods. No one speaks. You're a ghost with a shovel. Your workplace is the cesspit, a stone-lined hole beneath the latrines, where the castle's waste festers. You climb down a creaking ladder, or a frayed rope if the ladder's snapped again. The smell slams into you, thick with rot, stinging your eyes, coating your throat. You breathe through your mouth. But now you taste it. A blend of decay and regret that makes you wonder how you ended up here. The pit is ankle-deep in places, knee-deep in others. A mix of human waste, animal droppings, shattered pots, and straw soaked in things you don't name. Once, you found a copper ring, lost by some noble in a rush. You kept it, not for value, but as proof you endured this. Historians still argue whether gong farmers were outcasts or just workers paid well for a job no one else would touch. But the coin doesn't erase the stench. You rake through the muck, your torch casting shadows that twist like spirits. Fresh waste is bad, slimy and sharp, but the older layers, packed into grey sludge, are worse. They bubble, shift, almost breathing. You don't star too long. You shovel, fill your bucket, and haul it up, the rope cutting your palms. Each load lands in a groaning cart, its wheels sagging under the weight. You do this again and again, until the pit is less choked, never truly clean. Here's a strange fact. Some castles dump their waste into rivers, believing it scared off invaders. It didn't. It just made the fish rethink their life choices. The night is still, save for the squish of your boots and a distant owl's call. You work alone, because no one signs up for this. The steward once called your job vital, then covered his nose while saying it. You grinned, because he couldn't see your face. The cart fills, leaving a trail of sour air as you push it through the streets. Townsfolk slam shutters if they spot you. Kids toss rotten apples, and you sidestep, too weary to care. You reach the fields outside the walls, where this night soil becomes fertilizer. The nobles eating their turnips never know they're grown in their own refuse. You'd chuckle, but it's hard to laugh when you're the one hauling it. By dawn, you've emptied the cart, but your work isn't done. You rinse your tools in a pond that's half sludge, scrubbing your boots, your hands, your face. The smell stays. Your neighbours know your shift by the scent, and some won't share a bench at supper. You eat alone most nights. Bread that tastes like dust, ale that can't mask the stink. A hard truth. Gong farmers often earned more than weavers or cooks, because no one else would do it. But money doesn't buy dignity, and it doesn't buy a nose that forgets. Winter is brutal. The waste freezes, forcing you to chip through ice with a shovel to reach the warm, steaming mess below. Your fingers numb, your breath clouds, and the cold makes the smell sharper, like it's mocking you. Summer's no better. The heat bakes the pit, drawing swarms of flies and wasps that seem personally offended by your presence. You've tried vinegar, herbs, even lavender rubbed on your face. The stench just smirks. You're not slow, though. You know how to balance a ladder while hauling a bucket, how to spot a gas pocket before it flares under your torch. That's skill, carved from necessity, but no one calls it clever. You finish as dawn tints the sky, dragging your empty cart back to the yard. You prop your shovel against the wall, sit on a stump, and let the world fade. Your hands are cracked, your nails dark, your skin stained forever. You used to smell bread, rain, fresh earth. Now everything smells like decay, even clean water. Your family, if you have one, sleeps far from you. Your kids say you smell like sin and onions. You don't argue. You shut your eyes. The stench, trailing you into dreams of meadows. You'll never walk. A guard once laughed. Don't drown in there. Like it was original. You nodded. Because fighting isn't worth it. There's pride. Though, buried deep. The castle stands because you keep it from sinking. If you stopped, the latrines would spill. The halls would reek. And the nobles would notice you then. You're no knight. But you hold back chaos. You splash your face. Adjust your tunic. And trudge to your shack. The castle stirs. Oblivious. As you fade into the morning's grey, the nobles rise. Their chamber pots emptied by your hands. Their lives untouched by the cost. You lie down, the smell lingering, and sleep, knowing tomorrow you'll climb back into the pit. Because someone must. Because it's you. Section 4. Chamberlain's Silent Lists. You're still weaving through the castle's unseen veins, where the gong farmer's stench lingers in your mind, his shovel propped against a wall as dawn breaks. Now, you step into a quieter world, one of parchment, ink, and secrets. You're the apprentice to the chamberlain, a man who runs the castle with lists and a stare that could freeze wine. Your days are spent carrying ledgers, fetching keys, and dodging blame for things you didn't touch. Unlike the scullery maid's raw hands or the spit boy's burns, your wounds are invisible, etched in the weight of responsibility and the fear of a single mistake. You wear shoes, a rare privilege, but they squeak, and silence is your job. The gong farmer might reek, but you're the one who's never allowed to breathe too loudly. You'd probably lose your mind under the chamberlain's glare in a day. But here you are, Beninhont, keeping the castle's chaos stitched together. You wake before dawn in the servants' hall, near a fire that's more smoke than warmth. Your cot is narrow, your blanket thin, but it's better than the scullery's stone floor. You splash cold water on your face, comb your hair with your fingers, and smooth your tunic. A cleanish wool thing that sets you apart from the kitchen rabble. Presentation matters, the chamberlain says, his voice sharp as a quill. You slip on your leather shoes, stiff and curled at the toe. Their squeak a constant betrayal as you move. The castle is still asleep. Its halls dim, the air heavy with tallow and dust. You grab your satchel, heavy with ledgers, and head to the solar, where the chamberlain waits, already awake, as if sleep is beneath him. Your first task is candles. You walk the corridors, replacing stubs with fresh tallow tapers, the cheap kind that smell like sheep and sputter. Beeswax is for the chapel and the Lord's hall, not for servants' rooms. You move carefully, noting anything out of place. A low salt cellar, a missing wine cask, a chamber pot left full. You don't clean it. You delegate, which means finding a scullery maid to scowl at you. Your job is to notice, to record, to keep the castle's pulse steady. The chamberlain, a narrow man with a nose like a blade, follows you on inspections, tapping walls, sniffing rushes, tasting ale. You scribble his orders. 2 bolts of wool, 4 barrels of oil, 1 monk with a grudge against lentils. Your hand cramps, but you don't pause. Once, you spilled ink, and he made you recopy a ledger by candlelight while he loomed like a vulture. Historians still argue whether chamberlains were glorified clerks or secret puppet masters of the castle, but you know he's both. Mid-morning brings accounts. You sit in the solar, reading aloud. Wax, fish, barley, soap, barley again. The list never ends. A litany of numbers that hold the castle together. The chamberlain asks you to calculate the weight of a cask or the cost of a stone of flour. Hesitate. And his eyebrow rises. A fate worse than a slap. You envy the spitboy's fire. At least it's honest. Your fire is in the mistakes you can't afford. The linens that vanish. The firewood that's damp. The dog that soils a stairwell. It's always your fault. Even when it isn't. You joke that you're the castle's scapegoat. But the chamberlain doesn't laugh. And neither do you. Noon is a logistical maze. You arrange the noble's meal, juggling seating charts to avoid feuds, like the one between Lady Agnes and Lord Torald over a spilled mead incident. You carry titles, correct pronunciations, and whisper reminders that the Countess hates pigeon pie. You don't eat. You stand, holding a quill no one needs. Your stomach growling like a traitor. After, you check guest chambers, fluff rushes, straighten curtains, ensure no one's eloped or died without paperwork. You fetch keys, armory, cella, wardrobe, each one tied to your belt, clinking like a monk's rosary. Lose one, and it's exile. Or worse, latrine duty forever. Afternoon turns to chaos. A herring shipment's late. A priest's drunk on the chapel floor. The kitchen's out of sage. You draft letters, polite ones, while the steward rants. Sometimes, you write love notes for a noble woman who dictates behind a curtain. Feeding her doll cream-soaked fix, you edit her ramblings. Deliver the sealed nonsense to a knight who blushes like a furnace. You don't smirk, but you want to. A grim fact. Apprentices like you often worked until their eyes failed from candlelight strain, their careers ending in blurred vision. And the odd bit, some chamberlains kept dried lavender in their robes to mask the castle's stink. A luxury you'll never have. Evening means candles again. You walk the halls, lighting tapers, trimming wicks, your fingers sticky with wax. The castle quiets. Nobblers drink. Servants exhale. And you hover between worlds. Needed by both. Wanted by neither. You check guest rooms once more, ensuring no wine's spilled. No secrets whispered too loudly. Your feet ache. Your head throbs. But you don't eat until the chamberlain finishes his supper. Sometimes, he forgets you, and you wait outside his door, dozing while he drones about his youth to a bored page. He dismisses you with a flick of his fingers, and you bow, muttering thanks. You don't mean. You retreat to the servants' hall, your bunk cold, your blankets stolen again. You lie down, still dressed, staring at the ceiling. The air smells of ink, tallow, and the chamberlain's lavender, a scent you'll never shake. You once thought this job would be glamorous. Secrets, power, a glimpse of the noble world. Instead, you've learned about gout, stolen bread, and who hates whom over chess. Power is just rules. More ways to fail. You're fluent in silence, skilled at being invisible, yet indispensable. There's talk of promotion, maybe assistant steward. But more likely, you'll do this until your hands shake or your eyes dim. A quiet pride keeps you going. The castle runs because you count the candles, because you track the salt, because you catch the missing cask before it's a crisis. No one thanks you. But Kays doesn't win. You drift off, dreaming of barrels and quills, the squeak of your shoes echoing in your sleep. You wake to the first bell. Still dark. And stand, stretching legs that already ache. You grab your satchel, check your keys, and start again. The candles need lighting. The lists need writing. And the chamberlain's already waiting, his eyebrow poised to judge. Section 5. Stable Boy's Horse Whispers. You're still threading through the castle's unseen world, where the chamberlain's inky lists and the gong farmer's stench fade into the background. Now, you step into a place of straw, sweat, and soft knickers, where the air smells of hay and something alive. You're the stable boy, tasked with mucking stalls, soothing horses, and dodging kicks from creatures that outrank you in grace and grain. Unlike the scullery maid's endless scrubbing or the spit boy's fiery vigil, your work is with living things that don't yell, but might break your ribs if you're careless. You sleep above the stables, the horses' breaths, your lullaby, their trust, your only reward. You'd probably get trampled in a day, unlike the chamberlain who only wrestles ledgers, but here you are, shovel in hand, whispering to beasts that carry lords to glory. You wake before dawn, the loft above the stables creaking under your weight. The air is cold, heavy with the scent of manure and damp wood. Your pallet, a pile of straw and rags, smells of mildew and saddle oil. But it's yours. You pull on a tunic, stiff with yesterday's sweat, and boots, so worn, they're more holes than leather. The horses below shift, hooves clattering, snorting clouds of steam into the dark. You climb down a rickety ladder, each step a jolt to your aching knees. The stable is alive, a world of restless movement. And you're its keeper. The master of horse will arrive soon, his temper sharper than a spur. So you grab a shovel and start mucking stalls, scraping dung and wet straw before he can bark about discipline. The work is heavy, endless. You haul muck to a pile outside, the cold biting your cracked hands. Each stall takes time, the horses watching you with eyes that see more than most humans. You know them by name: Smoke, Gorse, Willow, each with a temper as distinct as the nobles they carry. Smoke trusts you, nuzzling your hand. Gorse bites if you move too fast. You whisper nonsense to keep them calm, words you'd never say to a person. A grim fact. Stable boys often died from kicks or falls, their bones broken by the very animals they cared for. And the odd bit, some castles used horse urine to tan leather, its ammonia softening hides in a way you try not to think about. Historians still argue whether stable boys were peasants or apprentices aiming for knighthood. But you know, you're just a boy with a shovel. Morning means feeding. You drag heavy sacks of oats from the loft, your shoulders screaming, and portion them carefully. Some horses are greedy, others shy, and you've got scars from learning which is which. You check hooves, pluck burrs, brush manes until they gleam, your hands caked with dust and hair. If the Lord rides today, you polish tack, wiping bridles until they shine, adjusting stirrups to his exact, impractical length. Fashion trumps function. Always. You stand aside as he mounts, invisible, your heart sinking. If the horse fidgets, it's your fault. Of course, if a stirrup slips or a saddle creaks, you joke that you're the horse's squire. But the master of horse doesn't laugh, and you've got a bruise from his last critique. Midday brings a moment to breathe. You sit on a stool, sipping warm ale from a dented cup, watching dust motes drift like tired spirits. The stable smells of life. Aye. Sweat. Horse. Better than the kitchen's grease or the cesspit's rot. You love the animals. Not that you'd say it. They don't lie. Don't sneer. Don't care if your tunic's patched. You know their moods, their limps, the way a nervous breath means a storm's coming. Once, you caught a mare's colic before it turned deadly. Earning a grunt from the master, that's your medal, your moment of glory. You chew a crust of bread, traded from a kitchen maid, and ignore the ache in your ribs from a kick last week. Afternoon is grooming, more mucking, more hauling. You sweep the aisle, refill troughs, mend a strap with twine and a bone needle, the Lord's hunting dogs, loud and spoiled, invade the stable, leaving messes you clean without complaint. A noble rides in, his horse lathered from a hunt, and you take the reins, dodging a hoof as the beast rears. You soothe it with a soft word, a firm hand, and no one notices. Evening brings a storm, the air heavy, the horses restless. You check each stall, rubbing noses, calming fears. Your tunic soaked from a leaking roof. You joke that you're the castle's horse whisperer, but no one's listening, and you're too tired to care. Night falls, and you climb to the loft. Your body, a map of aches. You eat a wedge of cheese, bartered for a favor, and a hunk of onion bread, too tough for the kitchen. The stable quiets. The horses settle, their breaths a steady rhythm below. You lie back, straw poking through your rags, and listen to the wind rattle the shutters. Somewhere, a minstrel's lute drifts from the great hall, a song for someone else's life. You're nearly 17, though no one counts. Your back creaking like a drawbridge. The nobles call you boy, wrinkling their noses at your smell. But a knight once gave you a copper coin for calming his stallion. You keep it, not to spend, but to hold. Proof you're not just dust. There's no ladder out of this. No stable boy becomes a knight. No shovel turns into a sword, but you know horses. How to wrap a wound. Spot a lame leg. Calm a foal. That's something you've seen boys break, run off, or vanish after a whipping. You stay, because the horses know your voice, because they nicker when your boots hit the straw. A quiet pride keeps you here, not for praise, but for the trust in their eyes. You close your eyes, the stable's warmth wrapping you, and dream of hoofbeats, of a world where you're more than a shadow. The horses breathe below, steady, alive. And for now, that's enough. Section 6. Turnspit Dog Keeper's Wheel. You're still wandering the castle's hidden corners, where the stable boy's soft whispers to horses echo faintly, mingling with the scent of hay and trust. Now, you step back into the kitchen's heat, where the air hums with clatter and grease. You're the turnspit dog keeper, tasked with coaxing weary mutts to run in a wooden wheel that turns the roasting spit. Your world is smoke, barking, and the endless patter of paws powering the noble's feasts. Unlike the chamberlain's quiet lists or the gong farmer's solitary stench, your work is with creatures that whine and bite, their exhaustion mirroring your own. You sleep near the hearth, a dog's warm side, your only comfort. Their loyalty, your thin reward. You'd probably lose a finger to a grumpy mutt in an hour. Unlike the stable boy, who at least deals with noble beasts. But here you are, stick in hand, keeping the wheel spinning. You wake before dawn, sprawled on a straw pallet by the kitchen hearth. A turnspit dog's paw draped across your chest. The mutt, a short-legged thing named Snipe, snores softly, his fur matted with grease and what might be goose fat. You sit up, your tunic, stiff with ash and sweat, smelling like every roast you've overseen. The kitchen is dark. The fire, a pile of smouldering coals, but the heat still clings, baking your skin. Your back cracks as you stand, your hands scarred from bites and burns. You're 17. Maybe, though no one tracks your years. Least of all you. The cook's voice, sharp as a skewer, cuts through the gloom, demanding the spit be ready. You nudge Snipe awake, and he growls, nipping your hand lightly. You don't blame him. He's been running 3 days straight. Your job is the turnspit wheel, a creaky wooden contraption like a hamster cage for dogs with trust issues. You lead Snipe to it, his paws dragging, and latch him inside. He starts walking. The wheel groans, and the spit above the fire begins to turn, a boar sizzling on it. You watch, timing his pace, coaxing him with a crust or a sharp word. Too slow, and the meat chars unevenly, earning you a ladle to the head. Too fast, and the dog collapses, and you're scrubbing floors with the scullery maid. A grim fact. Turnspit dogs were bred specifically for this. Their short legs and long bodies perfect for the wheel. But many died young from heat or overwork. And the odd bit, some kitchens used bacon grease to lure the dogs into running, which meant you spent half your day dodging their snapping jaws. Historians still argue whether these dogs were valued workers or just disposable tools. But you know they're as tired as you. The kitchen is a furnace, even in winter. A blur of shouting, steam, and clanging pots. Maids dart with trays. The cook swings her spoon like a mace, and you crouch by the wheel, dodging sparks. You rotate 4 dogs. Snipe, Button, Moors, Goods. 2 running, 2 resting, though rest is just twitching in a corner. Gnawing bones. You rub their legs, whisper encouragements, and clean the wheel's gears, which squeak loud enough to make the cook's veins throb. Once, a squeal during a feast cost you a bruise from her ladle. You joke you're the dog's nursemaid, but the cook doesn't laugh, and you've got a burn to prove it. Mid-morning, you feed the dogs, slipping them scraps from the noble's table. Goose fat, crusts soaked in gravy. It's forbidden, but no one runs on empty. Not even you. Goods, the mean one, only likes you with bacon in hand. Otherwise he snaps at your ankles. You've got a scar from last month when he caught you off guard. You eat your own meal. A heel of bread and thin pottage. In a corner, hiding from the cook's glare, your hands shake. Not just from hunger, but from the heat, the smoke, the constant crouching. Your eyes are red. Your cough, a permanent rattle from inhaling ash. You used to think dogs were joyful, loyal friends. Now you know these are workers, bred for endurance. Not love. They don't want your pats. They want your bread. Afternoon brings more chaos. A noble strides through, nodding at the roast, praising its rustic charm. You bite your tongue. That's your sweat and Snipe's paw prints he's tasting. You clean burns on Morse's pads, coax Button back into the wheel, and dodge a tray of oysters. A maid drops. The fire never rests. Nor do you. By evening, the nobles feast, their laughter drifting through the ceiling. You haul back half-eaten trays, scraping bones into a slop bucket, sneaking a scrap when no one looks. You joke you're dining with the lords, but the cook's spoon hovers, and you're too tired for wit. Night settles. The kitchen quiets. The cook's yelling fades to a mutter. You scrub the wheel, the spit, the hooks. Your hands raw from sand and heat. The steward's rounds loom, and a greasy smear means you're on privy duty. You collapse by the hearth, Snipe curling beside you, his warmth, a small mercy. You stare at the coals, thinking of a life before this. Maybe a falconer's apprentice, squinting at the sky, free of smoke. You don't know how you got here. Maybe your parents were desperate. Maybe you were just another mouth to feed. You dream of running. Not away, just running. Legs free. Air clean. Winter's brutal. The kitchen, a steam bath. Your tunic frozen on one side, scorched on the other. Summer's worse. The heat, a punishment. Flies swarming the grease. Your posture's warped, hunched from ducking beams, carrying spits. You're young, but your knees creak like an old gate. The dogs are your only allies. Moors nuzzling you after a long run. A fleeting kindness. You keep a poach hidden. A bit of cheese. A dog's tooth. Guts lost in a fight. Reminders of small victories. There's no escape. You won't be a knight or a bard. But you keep the wheel turning. The dog's alive. The feast's on time. A quiet pride holds you here. The castle eats because you bribe snipe with crusts. Because you clean Moore's burns. Because you know which dog runs fastest after thunder. No one thanks you. But the dogs know your voice. Their eyes softening when you near. You lean back. Snipe's breath warm against your arm. And listen to the hearth's faint crackle. The castle sleeps. The wheel still. And for now, that's enough. You close your eyes, dreaming of open fields. Pause on wood fading into silence. Section 7. Laundress's frozen hands. You're still lingering in the castle's unseen pulse, where the turnspit dogkeeper's smoky kitchen and the soft patter of weary paws fade into memory. Now, you step into a colder, wetter world, where the air bites your skin and the scent of lye stings your nose. You're the laundress, tasked with scrubbing linens in icy water, wrestling stains, and dodging noble wrath over a scorched hem. Unlike the stable boy's warm horse breaths or the chamberlain's dry ledgers, your work is a battle with soap, fire, and hands that never stop hurting. You sleep near the chimney, your fingers cracked, your back knotted, the rhythm of washing your only constant. You'd probably give up after one bucket of frozen water, unlike the dog keeper who at least has warm fur to lean against. But here you are, apron soaked, stirring a steaming pot of linens. You wake before dawn. The cold, seeping through your palate by the laundry yard's chimney. The air is sharp, your breath fogging as you sit up, joints stiff from yesterday's labor. Your wool kirtle, damp from last night's spill. Smells of smoke, tallow, and lye, a harsh reminder of your trade. You tie on a stained apron, wrap a scarf around your hair, and shove your feet into cracked leather shoes. A small mercy most servants don't have. The castle sleeps, its stone halls silent. But your work waits. You grab a basket of linens, heavy with noble sweat and wine stains, and head to the courtyard, where the great copper pot looms, blackened from years of fires. The scullery maid might envy your shoes, but she'd never trade her grease for your frostbite. Your first task is fire. You kneel by the pot's base, coaxing flames from damp kindling with flint and trembling hands. The wood catches, spitting sparks, and you feed it until the heat licks the copper above. You haul water next, 2 buckets at a time, balanced on a yoke that digs into your shoulders. The well pump groans, the water, icy, splashing your sleeves as you trudge back. You pour it into the pot, stirring in lye from ash you filtered last week. The liquid clouding like a storm. The steam rises, burning your face. But you keep stirring, Careful not to splash. A burn on your arm from last month still weeps. A reminder of lie's bite. A grim fact. Laundresses often lost fingers to frostbite or lie burns, their hands ruined by their trade. And the odd bit, some castles used crushed snails as a stain remover, their slime breaking down wine better than soap. Historians still argue whether laundresses were skilled artisans or just drudges with buckets. But you know it's both. You sort the linens, coarse sheets in one pile, noble garments in another. The lord's shirts and the ladies' shifts demand reverence, not for their finery, but for the whipping you'd get if they tear. Wool stays separate. Boiling it shrinks a cloak to a child's size. A mistake you made once and paid for with a week of breadless nights. You soak the linens in the hot lye water, stirring with a paddle, the steam choking your lungs. Then comes scrubbing, kneeling at a stone slab by the well, pressing a tunic against the rock. You rub black soap, harsh with tallow, into the cloth, your knuckles whitening, the cold numbing your fingers. The water clouds with dirt, a small victory, but your hands scream, cracked and peeling. Mid-morning, you haul the linens to the stream beyond the outer wall. You beat sheets with a wooden paddle, the water splashing your face, soaking your kirtle. Each swing jars your shoulders, but the stains lift, the cloth whitening. Other washerwomen from the village work nearby, their silence a shared language of exhaustion. You twist the linens dry, your arms burning, and drape them over bushes or ropes strung between trees. In winter, like now, they freeze stiff before they dry, and you'll hang them by the hearth, praying they don't catch fire. You joke you're the castle's alchemist, turning filth to purity. But the cold steals your humour. Afternoon blurs into repetition. More water. More lye. More scrubbing. Your back is a knotted rope. Your forearms numb. You spot a wine stain gone from the lady's veil. A flicker of pride. But a freedom dims it. You'll mend it tonight, hoping no one notices. You sit on an upturned bucket, chewing a stale crust from your apron, watching the linens sway in the wind. The stable boy might envy your fire, but he'd never trade his horses for this ache. Evening brings delivery. You carry noble garments to the Lord's solar. Eyes down, handing the basket to a servant who doesn't thank you. You nod at a scullery maid by the kitchen, her fishy smell matching your lye-stung hands. A quiet bond. Night falls, and you return to the laundry yard. You douse the fire, empty the tubs, scrub the soapstones. A sheet has slipped into the mud. You grab it before anyone sees, vowing to re-wash it tomorrow. You sit by the dying embers, holding your hands to the warmth, feeling the pain pulse back. Your nails are chipped, your fingertips raw, but they still work. In your apron, you keep a scrap of linen, a torn towel you're sewing into a handkerchief in stolen moments. It's yours, a secret no noble can claim. You eat in the servants' hall, pottage and bread, eyes low, then crawl to your pallet. The chimney's warmth, a faint comfort. There's no escape from this. No laundress becomes a lady's maid. No, soap turns into gold. But you know stains. How to lift blood with cold water. Wine with ash. You've seen girls dismissed over a scorch. But you keep going. Because the castle needs clean sheets. Because the lady's veil must gleam. A quiet pride holds you here. Not for praise, but for the linens that dry crisp under your hands. You lie down, dreaming of rivers, of cloth, soft as clouds. Your hands whole, the castle breathes around you. The scullery maid snores distant. The stable boy's horses shifting. You sleep, knowing tomorrow brings more water, more pain, but also the flicker of a job well done. Section 8. Night Watchwoman's Shadowed Rounds. You're still drifting through the castle's quiet undercurrents, where the laundress's cracked hands and the scent of lye linger in your memory, her linens swaying like ghosts in the wind. Now, you step into a world of shadows, where the air is cold and the silence hums with secrets. You're the night watchwoman, tasked with patrolling dark corridors, a lantern in one hand, a ring of keys in the other. Your job is to guard the castle's sleep, catching sparks before they flare, cries before they wake the lords. Unlike the turnspit dog-keeper's smoky chaos or the stable boy's warm stalls, your work is solitary. Your only companions, the creak of wood and the flicker of your flame. You'd probably jump at every shadow in an hour, unlike the laundress who faces her pain in daylight. But here you are, soft shoes, whispering, keeping the night at bay. You wake in the late evening, the castle's pulse slowing as others crawl to their cots. Your nook, a shelf-like bed above the linen stores, is cold, your blanket thin, smelling of mildew and wax. You pull on a wool dress, thick with patched layers, and tie on soft shoes, mended with scraps to muffle your steps. Silence is your craft, noise your enemy. You light your lantern, the tallow candle sputtering, casting a weak glow that dances on the stone walls. The air bites, sharp with frost, as you slip into the halls, keys jangling softly at your waist. The castle feels alive, its stones holding centuries of footsteps, and you're its keeper tonight. A shadow among shadows. Your first stop is the nursery, where two noble children sleep under embroidered quilts. You don't know their names, but you know their fevers, their nightmares. The one who wets the bed. You straighten a blanket to your touchlight and leave without a sound. Next, you pass the hall of tapestries, their woven knights, staring with glassy eyes. A board creaks behind you, but you don't turn. If you walk on, your heart steady. Fear isn't paid here, only vigilance. You check the library door, locked as it should be. Last month, an open latch let rats chew a manuscript, and the steward's rant still rings in your ears. A grim fact: night watchwomen often faced blame for thefts or fires they couldn't prevent, their word worthless against a noble's. And the odd bit: some carried small bells to signal danger, but you prefer your keys. Their weight a quiet comfort. Historians still argue whether watchwomen were trusted guardians or just scapegoats for sleepless lords. But you know you're both. You climb a narrow stair, lantern held high, your legs aching from your second round tonight. The castle is vast, its corridors a maze of stone and draught. You listen for the drip of water, the scuttle of mice, the sigh of settling wood, knowing what's normal, what's not. In the east wing, a window gapes open, unlatched since supper. You set your lantern down, close it quietly, and move on. You don't report it. The steward scoffs at talk of ghosts, but you felt their chill. The laundry room is next. Linens hung by the laundress, now stiff with cold. You tug down a noble's cloak, its hem singed from a wall torch. You fold it under your arm. You'll mend it before dawn. Your stitches slow but sure, saving you from blame. The kitchen corridor smells of onion broth, a pot still steaming on the hearth. You lift the lid, dip a crust into the thin soup, just enough to feel human. You don't eat with the others. Your hours are their dreams. You've learned which shelves hide a shriveled apple, a wedge of cheese, the cook's silent gift, perhaps, or her own past as a night walker. You check the Lord's solar stare. Forbidden to you, a world of feather beds and warm slippers. You linger, hearing faint laughter above. Then move on. Your place below. Always below. You joke, you're the castle's sleepless spirit. But the shadows don't laugh. And you've got rounds to finish. Midnight brings the chapel. A votive candle burning low at the altar. You snuff it. Not for disrespect, but to keep embers from catching the drapes. A lesson from last winter's near fire. The iron candlestick is cold under your touch. And you leave. Your lantern's glow soft on the stone. You pass the servants' dormitory. A baby's cry piercing the quiet. You knock. Pass a flask of warm water to a bleary-eyed mother. And go. Her nod, your only thanks. The castle's walls feel heavy. Alive with the weight of lives before yours. The scullery maid's ancestors scrubbing these floors. The gong farmer's kin hauling their buckets. You don't feel small. You feel woven into something vast. Your final round nears as dawn hints grey. The lantern flickers. Its candle stop tilting. But you coax out its last light. You check the storerooms, where a spark could eat the castle whole. The armory door is ajar. A draft's work, or a careless hand. You step inside, heart quickening, scanning racks of swords, pikes, axes, all accounted for. No thief, no threat. You bolt the door, your breath easing, and return to your post by the kitchen hearth. You sit, unwrap the singed cloak, and thread a needle, mending it as the bells toll for morning prayer. Your stitches are uneven, your fingers stiff, but it's done. Another crisis averted. You climb to your nook, curling into your blanket. The castle stirring below. A door creaks. A bucket clanks. The cook's voice barks. You've earned your sleep. Brief as it is. There's pride in your quiet work. The open window shut. The cloak mended. The fire snuffed before it spread. No one sings your name. But the castle breathes because you walk its nights. You keep a pouch of salt in your apron. A trick from the old cook. To ward off things that don't belong. You've never used it. But it's there. Like the stars you glimpse through the great window. Cold and steady. Always returning. You joke you're the night's own maid. But the silence holds you. And you drift off. Dreaming of starlight. Of halls that don't need guarding. Your steps fading into peace. Section 9. Falconer's skyward bond. You're still gliding through the castle's hidden rhythms, where the night watchwoman's lantern flickers in your memory. Her soft steps guarding the sleeping stones. Now, you step into a world of open air and sharp talons, where the scent of leather and feathers cuts through the morning chill. You're the falconer, tasked with training fierce hawks, your wrists scarred, your heart tethered to their wild flight. Unlike the laundress's frozen hands or the turnspit dog-keeper's smoky wheel, your work is with creatures that soar, their eyes sharper than any noble's blade. You sleep in a loft near the mews. The hawk's restless wings, your lullaby. Their trust, your fragile prize. You'd probably flinch at a hawk's dive in a moment, unlike the watchwoman who faces shadows with steady steps. But here you are, glove on hand, calling a bird from the sky. You wake at first light. The loft above the mews draughty and cold. Your pallet, a heap of straw and wool, smells of feathers and earth. A faint comfort in the chill. You pull on a patched tunic, stiff with sweat and resin, and a leather glove, worn thin from talons. Your boots, heavy with mud, creak as you climb down to the mews. A stone shed where the hawks perch, hooded and still. The air is sharp, laced with the musk of birds and the tang of raw meat. The castle stirs beyond. But here, it's just you and the hawks, their eyes glinting when you lift their hoods. The Lord's falconer, a gruff man with a limp, will check your work later. So, you move quickly, your hands steady, despite the ache in your wrists. Your first task is feeding. You chop strips of rabbit, fresh from yesterday's hunt. Your knife dull but sure. Each hawk gets a precise portion. Too much, and they grow lazy. Too little, and they weaken. You unhood Kestrel, a peregrine with a temper, and offer the meat, her talons grazing your glove as she snatches it. You murmur to her, nonsense words that soothe, like the stable boy's whispers to his horses. You check yeses, the leather straps tying them to their perches, and clean the mews, sweeping droppings and feathers into a pile. A grim fact. Falconers often lost fingers to infected bites, their hands torn by beaks sharper than steel. And the odd bit, some hawks were trained to hunt with bells on their legs, their jingle signaling a kill across the fields. Historians still argue whether falconers were skilled artisans or mere servants to noble sport. But you know you're bound to the sky. Morning means training. You take Kestrel to the fields, her weight light on your fist, her eyes scanning the horizon. You swing a lure, a padded leather ball tied to a cord, and release her, watching her climb, a speck against the clouds. She dives, talons striking the lure, and you call her back with a whistle, offering a scrap of meat. Your heart lifts with her flight. A rare freedom in this stone-bound world. The Lord sometimes joins, his own hawk on his glove, but he doesn't speak to you, just nods at Kestrel's speed. You joke you're the hawk's squire, but the Lord's gaze is colder than the wind, and you keep silent. Midday brings repairs. You sit by the mews, stitching a torn jess with waxed thread, your fingers pricked and calloused. You carve a new perch from ash wood, smoothing it with a blade, your hands sticky with resin. The other hawks, Sparrow and Jeer, need checking, their talons filed, their hoods adjusted, sparrows molting, feathers littering the floor, and you gather them, saving the best for the Fletcher's arrows. The stable boy might envy your open fields, but he'd never trade his horses for these claws. You eat a crust and a sliver of cheese, bartered from a kitchen maid, chewing slowly as clouds drift above, their freedom mocking your own. Afternoon is hunting. If the Lord calls for it, you follow him to the woods. Kestrel, on your fist, her bells jingling softly. You release her, watching her strike a pigeon mid-flight, feathers bursting like snow. You retrieve the kill, your boots sinking in mud, and present it to the Lord's huntsman, who grunts approval. Back at the mews, you clean Kestrel's beak, check her wings, and hood her, your hands gentle despite their scars. Evening brings a storm, the hawks restless, their wings beating against the perches. You stay late, calming them with your voice, your tunic soaked from a leaking roof. You joke you're married to the sky, but the wind steals your breath, and you're too tired to laugh. Night falls, and you climb to your loft, your body a map of aches. You eat a cold pottage, left by the cook, and a hunk of bread too hard for the hall. The mews quiets, the hawks settling, their breaths a faint rustle below. You lie back, straw pricking your skin, and listen to the rain tap the roof. A distant lute hums from the great hall, A song for nobles. Not you. You're nearly 20. Your wrists scarred. Your eyes sharp from tracking flights. The nobles call you bird boy. Their noses wrinkling at your feather dust smell. But a knight once tossed you a silver coin for Kestrel's kill. You keep it. A talisman of your bond with the sky. There's no rising from this. No falconer becomes a lord. No, glove turns into a crown. But you know hawks. How to read their tilt. Mend their wings. Call them from clouds. You've seen boys flee. Unable to tame the birds or the Lord's temper. You stay. Because Kestrel knows your whistle. Because Jeer leans into your touch. A quiet pride keeps you here. Not for coin. But for the moment a hawk returns to your fist. Eyes locked on yours. You close your eyes. The muse warmth wrapping you. And dream of soaring. Of skies without walls. The hawks breathe below. Steady. Wild. And for now, that's enough. Section 10. Brewers' steamy vats. You're still wandering the castle's unseen corners, where the falconer's whistle and the faint jingle of hawk bells linger in your mind. A whisper of the sky's wild freedom. Now, you step into a world of steam and malt, where the air is thick with the sweet, sour tang of fermenting grain. You're the brewer, tasked with crafting ale in sweltering vats. The castle's liquid courage that keeps nobles merry and servants sane. Unlike the night watchwoman's quiet rounds or the stable boy's hoarse whispers, your work is a dance of heat, heft, and timing. Your hands blistered, your back bowed under sacks of barley. You sleep in a loft above the brewhouse. The yeasts hum your lullaby. The ale's success, your fragile pride. You'd probably scold yourself in a day. Unlike the falconer who faces talons. Not boiling wort, but here you are. Paddle in hand. Stirring the brew that fuels the castle. You wake, in the pre-dawn gloom. The brewhouse loft damp and warm. Your pallet, a thin layer of straw, over creaking boards. The air smells of malt and mould. A heavy blanket that never lifts. You pull on a tunic, patched and stained with yeast. Its sour scent baked into the weave. Your boots, caked with dried mash, slip on as you climb down a rickety ladder. Your knees protesting from years of hauling sacks. The brewhouse is a stone shed by the castle's outer wall, its vats steaming even in the dark. The fire beneath them never fully out. The master brewer, a burly man with a voice like gravel. He will check your work at noon. So, you stoke the hearth, the heat hitting like a slap, and start the day's batch before the scullery maid even lights her kitchen fire. Your first task is mashing. You haul sacks of barley, ground coarse at the mill, and tip them into a great wooden tun. Your shoulders burning under the weight. You pour hot water, fetched in buckets from the well, and stir with a long paddle. The mash thickening into a porridge that smells of earth and promise. Sweat beads on your face, dripping into the tun, but no one notices. Ale forgives such things. You time the mash by counting breaths. A trick you learned after burning a batch early on. A grim fact. Brewers often died from scalds or falls into vats, their bodies claimed by the very ale they made. And the odd bit, some castles added ground ivy to ale for a bitter kick, a plant you pick barefoot in the dawn, dodging thorns. Historians still argue whether brewers were skilled craftsmen or just glorified cooks. But you know you're the castle's alchemist, turning grain into gold. Morning means fermenting. You strain the mash, the wort flowing into copper vats. Your hands sticky with grain. You add yeast, a bubbling starter, kept alive like a family heirloom, and stir. watching bubbles rise like tiny prayers. The vats hum, alive with heat and scent, and you check their warmth, your palm hovering over the surface. Too cold, and the ale sours. Too hot, and it's vinegar. The Lord Steward once blamed you for a flat batch, and you spent a week hauling firewood as punishment. You joke you're the castle's beer wizard, but the master brewer's glare keeps your tongue still. You clean the tuns, scrubbing with ash and elbow grease, your arms aching. The laundress's lie a luxury you don't have. Midday brings a pause. You sit on a barrel, chewing a crust and a pickled herring. The fishy tang, a gift from a kitchen maid who pities your sweat-soaked face. The brewhouse is a furnace, even in winter, the steam curling like spirits in the rafters. You check the cooling wort, skimming foam, your hands red from heat. A noble pass by, sniffing the air, praising the hearty brew. You nod, eyes low, knowing he'll never see the blisters behind it. Afternoon is racking, siphoning ale into barrels, your back bending under their weight as you roll them to the cellar. You test a sip, sharp and malty, a small victory before the steward's judgment. Evening comes, and you prepare for tomorrow, grinding more barley, soaking herbs, stoking the fire. The castle hums beyond, the falconer's hawks settling, the watchwoman's lantern glowing. You climb to the loft, your tunic soaked, your skin prickling with rash from the heat. You eat a thin pottage, left by the cook, and a hunk of bread, chewing slowly as stars peek through a cracked shutter. The brewhouse quiets, the vat's faint bubble, a steady pulse. You're not old, maybe 25, but your back creaks like a gate, your hands scarred from burns. The nobles call you ale man, their noses wrinkling at your yeast-stained smell. But a knight once clapped your shoulder for a strong batch. You keep that moment, not for coin, but for warmth. There's no rising from this. No brewer becomes a steward. No, paddle turns into a schepter. But you know ale, how to balance malt and herb, how to coax life from water and grain. You've seen men quit, burned out, or drunk, on their own brew. But you stay, because the vats need stirring, because the Lord's Hall needs its cheer. A quiet pride holds you here. Not for praise, but for the moment a barrel rolls out. It's ale crisp and true. You lean back, straw scratching your skin, and listen to the brewhouse breathe. The castle sleeps. The vats hum. And for now, that's enough. You close your eyes, dreaming of fields of barley, of rivers cool and clean, your hands unburned. From your work, a song that lingers in the night. Section 11, Chandler's Waxen Craft. You're still weaving through the castle's quiet currents, where the brewer's steamy vats and the sharp tang of fermenting ale linger in your memory. A warm hum of grain and labour. Now, you step into a softer glow, where the air carries the faint scent of melted tallow and the flicker of candlelight. You're the chandler, tasked with moulding candles that light the castle's endless nights. Your hands sticky, your eyes strained from working by flame. Unlike the falconer's open skies or the laundress's icy buckets, your work is a delicate dance of wax and wick, crafting glow where shadows creep. You sleep in a small room above the chandlery. The smell of fat, your constant companion. The castle's need for light, your steady burden. You'd probably spill hot wax in a minute. Unlike the brewer who stirs vats with steady hands. But here you are, mould in hand, shaping the castle's fragile warmth. You wake in the early dark, your cot in the chandlery's loft, cramped and cold. the air heavy with the greasy scent of tallow. Your blanket, thin and patched, does little against the draft. But you rise, joints stiff from yesterday's work. You pull on a tunic, stained with wax drippings. It smell a mix of sheep, fat and smoke, baked into the weave. Your hands, already cracked, sting as you flex them, and you slip on worn shoes, soles slick from spilled grease. The chandlery, a stone shed near the kitchen, hums with the faint crackle of a hearth you never let die. The master chandler, a wiry woman with fingers like twigs, will check your molds at noon. So you hurry, stoking the fire to melt the fat before the night watchwoman snuffs her last lantern. Your first task is rendering. You haul a sack of tallow, animal fat saved from the kitchen's roasts, and tip it into a great iron pot over the hearth. The fat sizzles, filling the air with a thick, meaty smell that clings to your hair. You stir with a wooden paddle, skimming off bits of gristle, your face flushed from the heat. The wax must be clean, or the candles sputter, and the steward's wrath is sharper than a knife. You pour the liquid tallow into molds, tin trays with rows of wick holes. Your hands steady, despite the burn scars. A grim fact: chandlers often suffered lung ailments from inhaling tallow fumes, their breaths shortened by their craft. And the odd bit, some castles mixed human fat from executions into candles, believing it burned brighter. A practice you avoid, sticking to sheep and cow. Historians still argue whether chandlers were artisans or just grease-stained labourers. But you know you're the castle's keeper of light. Morning means wicking. You thread cotton strands through the moulds, each one knotted to stay taut. Your fingers sticky with wax. You check yesterday's candles, trimming wicks, popping them from their moulds. Their surface is smooth and pale. The Lord's Hall gets beeswax, sweet and golden. But you work mostly with tallow, cheap and smoky. For servants' rooms and corridors, you stack the candles in baskets, counting each one, because the chamberlain's lists miss nothing, and a short count means a day without bread. You joke you're the castle's glow maker, but the master chandler's sharp tongue keeps you quiet, her last scolding still stinging. Midday brings a moment to breathe. You sit on a stool by the chandlery door, chewing a crust and a sliver of onion, the sharp bite cutting through the tallow's grease. The shed is warm, almost stifling, the hearth's glow casting shadows that dance like the watchwoman's lantern. You clean the moulds, scrubbing with ash and sand, your knuckles raw. The laundress's soap, a distant dream. A noble's page dashes by, snatching a candle for his master's solar, not sparing you a glance. You nod to a kitchen maid, her fishy hands matching your waxy ones. A silent kinship. Afternoon is pouring. More tallow, more moulds. Your arms aching as you lift the heavy pot. You test a candle, its flame steady. A small triumph before the steward's inspection. Evening comes, and you deliver baskets to the castle's corners. The chapel, the halls, the servants' quarters. You light a taper for the night watchwoman. Her nod, your only thanks. Her keys jingling like a faint echo of your work. The castle hums, the brewer's vats bubbling, the falconer's hawks settling. You return to the chandlery, cleaning tools, stoking the hearth for tomorrow. You climb to your loft, your tunic stiff with wax, your skin itching from grease. You eat a cold pottage, left by the cook, and a hunk of bread, chewing slowly as stars gleam through a cracked window. You're not old, maybe 22, but your hands look 40, cracked and scarred. The nobles call you wax girl, their noses wrinkling at your tallow smell. But a priest once praised your candle's glow in the chapel. You hold that close. A spark in the dark. There's no escape from this. No chandler becomes a scribe. No mold turns into a jewel. But you know wax. How to balance wick and fat. How to craft light from slaughter's scraps. You've seen apprentice, kit, burned or choked by fumes. But you stay. Because the castle needs its glow. Because the chapel's prayers need your flame. A quiet pride keeps you here. Not for coin, but for the moment a candle burns true. Its light softening the stone. You lie back, straw pricking your skin, and listen to the hearth's faint crackle. The castle sleeps. The candles burn. And for now, that's enough. You close your eyes, dreaming of fields lit by stars, of flames that don't burn. Your hands soft. Your work, a quiet glow that lingers in the night. Section 12. Weaver's Loom Rhythms. You're still threading through the castle's quiet heartbeat, where the chandler's waxen glow and the faint crackle of her hearth linger in your memory. A soft light against the dark. Now, you step into a world of clacking wood and taut threads, where the air hums with the rhythm of a loom and the dusty scent of wool. You're the weaver, tasked with crafting cloth that warms nobles and curtains their halls. Your fingers nimble, your back aching from hours bent over your work. Unlike the brewer's steamy vats or the falconer's open skies, your labour is a steady pulse of shuttle and treadle, weaving order from chaos. You sleep in a cramped room near the weaving shed. The looms echo in your dreams. The cloth's weight, your silent burden. You'd probably tangle the threads in a day. Unlike the chandler who moulds light with steady hands. But here you are, shuttle in hand, weaving the castle's warmth. You wake in the pre-dawn chill. You're cot in a nook, by the weaving shed cold and musty, the air heavy with the scent of raw wool and flax. Your blanket, a rough scrap of your own making, barely keeps the draught at bay. But you rise, joints creaking from yesterday's long hours. You pull on a tunic, patched and dusted with fibres. Its smell a blend of sheep and sweat, woven into the fabric like your labour. Your hands, calloused and pricked, sting as you flex them, and you slip on thin shoes, worn from pacing the shed's dirt floor. The weaving shed, a low stone building near the courtyard. Wait. Its looms, silent but ready. The master weaver, a sharp-eyed woman with a voice like a whip, will check your work by noon. So you hurry, lighting a small hearth to warm the shed before the scullery maid's buckets even clank. Your first task is warping. You stretch threads across the loom, tying each one to the beam, your fingers dancing to keep them taut and even. The work is precise. A single slack thread can ruin yards of cloth, and the steward's wrath over a flawed curtain is fiercer than a storm. You hum softly, a habit to keep time, your voice blending with the loom's creak. The wool comes from the castle's flocks, spun by village women, its grease still clinging to your hands. You check the warp, adjusting weights to hold it steady, your arms already aching. A grim fact: weavers often lost their sight from years of straining in dim light, their eyes worn out by their craft. And the odd bit, some castles dyed cloth with woad, a plant that stained hands blue for weeks. A mark you bear, like a badge. Historians still argue whether weavers were skilled artisans or just drudges of the loom. But you know you're the castle's thread keeper, spinning warmth from fleece. Morning means weaving. You sit at the loom, your feet working the treadles, your hands guiding the shuttle through the warp. The clack of wood, a steady heartbeat, The cloth grows, inch by inch, a coarse wool for servants' cloaks, not the fine linen of noble robes. You watch for snags, your eyes burning from dust and focus. The chandler's tallow candles, your only light. The master weaver circles, her gaze catching every flaw, and you tense, remembering her last scolding over a dropped stitch. You joke you're the castle's cloth witch, but her sharp tongue keeps you silent, your fingers flying to prove your worth. Midday brings a brief rest. You sit on a bench outside the shed, chewing a crust and a shriveled apple, the tart bite cutting through the wool's dust. The shed is warm, the hearth's glow mixing with the loom's rhythm. A cocoon of work and heat. You mend a broken thread, your needle pricking your thumb, and clean the loom, brushing off fibers that cling like snow. A noble page dart by, carrying a basket of your cloth, not sparing you a glance. You nod to a laundress, her lie-stung hands matching your thread-worn ones. A bond. Afternoon is more weaving. The shuttle, a blur. Your back, a knotted ache as the cloth lengthens. Destined for the steward's stores. Evening comes, and you finish a bolt, cutting it free with a dull knife, your hands trembling from the day's strain. You fold the cloth, stacking it with others, counting yards for the chamberlain's lists. A task you dread for its precision. The castle hums beyond, the brewer's vats bubbling, the night watchwoman's lantern flickering. You clean the loom, oiling its joints, sweeping the floor, your tunic dusted white with lint. You climb to your nook, your body a map of pains, your skin itching from wool. You eat a thin pottage, left by the cook, and a hunk of bread, chewing slowly as stars peek through a cracked shutter. You're not old, maybe 23, but your back bends like a grandmother's, your finger stiff. The nobles call you thread girl, their noses wrinkling at your woolly smell. But a lady once praised your cloak's warmth. You hold that close, a stitch in your heart. There's no escape from this. No weaver becomes a tailor. No shuttle turns into a wand. But you know cloth. How to balance warp and weft. How to weave strength from fragile threads. You've seen apprentice kit. Their hands too soft or their patience too thin. But you stay. Because the castle needs cloaks. Because the hall needs curtains. A quiet pride keeps you here. Not for coin, but for the moment, a bolt unfolds. Its weave tight and true. You lean back, straw pricking your skin, and listen to the shed's faint creak. The castle sleeps, the loom still. And for now, that's enough. You close your eyes, dreaming of fields of flax, of threads soft as clouds, your hands unpricked, your work, a tapestry that lingers in the night. Section 13. Baker's Midnight Need. You're still wandering the castle's unseen threads, where the weaver's clacking loom and the dusty scent of wool linger in your mind. Her shuttle, weaving warmth into the night. Now, you step into a world of flour and fire, where the air is thick with the warm, yeasty smell of rising dough. You're the baker, tasked with kneading bread before dawn, your hands dusted white, your shoulders aching from punching loaves that feed the castle's hunger. Unlike the chandler's waxen glow or the brewer's steamy vats, your work is a rhythm of need. Rise, bake, a quiet alchemy that starts while others sleep. You sleep in a nook by the bakehouse, the hearth's heat your blanket, the bread's crust, your fragile pride. You'd probably burn a loaf in an hour, unlike the weaver who threads with steady hands. But here you are, apron, tiered, shaping the castle's daily bread. You wake in the deep night. Your cot in the bakehouse's corner, warm but cramped. The air heavy with the scent of flour and ash. Your blanket, a flour-sacked rag, barely holds the heat. But you rise. Joints stiff from yesterday's labor. You pull on a tunic, dusted white and smelling of yeast. Its weave stiff with sweat and crumbs. Your hands, calloused and cracked, ache as you flex them. And you slip on worn shoes, soles caked with dough from countless nights. The bakehouse, a stone shed by the kitchen, glows faintly, its great oven never fully cold. The master baker, a stout man with a cough like a bellows. I will check your loaves at dawn. So you stoke the hearth, the fire flaring hot, and start your work before the night watchwoman finishes her rounds. Your first task is kneading. You haul a sack of rye flour, coarse and heavy, and tip it into a wooden trough. Your arms straining. You add water, warm from a kettle, and a pinch of salt. Then plunge your hands in, working the dough until it fights back. The knead is brutal. Your shoulders burning, your wrists twisting as the dough sticks to your fingers. You punch it, fold it, slam it, the trough creaking under your force. The smell of yeast rises, sharp and alive, a promise of bread to come. You time the knead by feel, a skill learned after burning a batch that earned you a week of scrubbing ovens. A grim fact: bakers often suffered burns or lung ailments from flour dust, their bodies worn by heat and grit. And the odd bit, some castles used bread as trenchers, edible plates for noble feasts, which you bake thicker to soak up gravy. Historians still argue whether bakers were craftsmen or just kitchen drudges. But you know you're the castle's sustainer, turning grain into life. Morning, still dark. Man's shaping. You divide the dough, your knife dull but sure, forming loaves, round for servants, long for the Lord's hall. You slash their tops, across for luck, and set them to rise by the hearth, covered with a damp cloth. You check the oven, its heat fierce, and sweep out ash with a long pole. Your face flushed, sweat dripping into your eyes. The first loaves go in, the smell of baking bread filling the bakehouse. A warm hug in the cold. You watch them, turning them with a peel, a flat wooden shovel, to keep them even. The master baker once blamed you for a cracked loaf, and you hauled firewood for days. You joke you're the castle's dough wizard, but his grunt keeps you silent, your hands busy with the next batch. Midday, or what feels like it in the dark, brings a pause. You sit on a stool by the bakehouse door, chewing a burnt crust, its char bitter but filling, and a sliver of cheese, traded from a kitchen maid. The bakehouse is a furnace, the oven's glow casting shadows like the chandler's candles. But heavier, earthier, you clean the trough, scraping dough with a blunt blade. Your knuckles raw. The laundress's soap, a distant dream. A page darts in, snatching a loaf for the steward, not sparing you a glance. You nod to a scullery maid, her greasy hands matching your floury ones. A quiet kinship. Afternoon is baking. More loaves. More heat. Your back a knotted ache as you slide them in and out, the peel heavy in your grip. Evening comes, though you barely see the sun, and you deliver baskets of bread to the kitchen. The hall, the servants' quarters. You leave a loaf for the night watchwoman, her nod your only thanks. Her lantern, a faint echo of your oven's glow. The castle hums, the weaver's loom clacking, the brewer's vats bubbling. You return to the bakehouse. Cleaning tools. Stoking the hearth for tomorrow. You climb to your nook. Your tunic crusted with flour. Your skin itching from dust. You eat a cold pottage, left by the cook, and a hunk of bread, chewing slowly as stars glint through a cracked shutter. You're not old, maybe 24, but your hands look ancient, cracked and dusted. The nobles call you bread man, their noses wrinkling at your yeasty smell. But a knight once praised your rye's crust. You hold that close? A crumb of warmth. There's no escape from this. No baker becomes a cook. No peel turns into a schepter. But you know dough. How to balance flour and fire. How to craft life from grit and heat. You've seen apprentice key, burned or broken by the hours. But you stay, because the castle needs bread, because the hall needs its trencher. A quiet pride keeps you here, not for coin, but for the moment a loaf breaks, its steam rising like a prayer. You lie back, straff pricking your skin, and listen to the hearth's faint crackle. The castle sleeps. The oven cools. And for now, that's enough. You close your eyes, dreaming of fields of rye, of loaves soft as clouds, your hands unburned, your work, a warm crust that lingers in the night. Section 14, Herbalist's Quiet Remedies. You're still drifting through the castle's hidden pulse, where the baker's warm loaves and the yeasty glow of his bakehouse linger in your memory. A crust of comfort in the night. Now, you step into a world of crushed leaves and earthy scents, where the air hums with the soft rustle of drying herbs and the tang of boiled roots. You're the herbalist, tasked with mixing potions in a small hut, healing servants who can't afford to rest. Your hands stained green, your eyes sharp from spotting plants in dawn's light. Unlike the weaver's clacking loom or the chandler's waxy glow, your work is a quiet craft of remedies, soothing burns, fevers, and fears with nature's secrets. You sleep in a cot by your hearth, the smell of lavender, your blanket, the trust of the weary, your subtle reward. You'd probably poison yourself with the wrong leaf in a day, unlike the baker, who kneads with steady fists. But here you are, mortar in hand, grinding the castle's cure. You wake in the early dark, your cot in the herbalist's hut, snug but chilled, the air thick with the scent of dried sage and damp earth. Your blanket, a patched wool throw, holds the faint whiff of chamomile. But you rise, joints stiff from yesterday's foraging. You pull on a tunic, stained with sap and berry juice, its weave heavy with the smell of wood smoke and herbs. Your hands, rough and green-tinged, ache as you flex them, and you slip on soft shoes, soles worn from tramping fields and forests. The hut, a wattle and daub shack near the castle's garden, glows faintly, its small hearth smouldering with last night's embers. The castle's physician, a haughty man who serves only nobles, ignores your work, but the servants rely on you. So you stoke the fire, the warmth spreading, and begin before the baker's ovens even roar. Your first task is gathering. You step into the dawn, a basket on your arm, the grass wet underfoot as you head to the herb garden or the woods beyond. You pluck feverfew for headaches, yarrow for wounds, mint for sour stomachs. Your fingers deft, your eyes scanning for the right leaves. The air is cold, your breath clouding, but you move with purpose, knowing a scullery maid's burn or a stable boy's cough waits for your return. You kneel by a stream, digging valerian roots for sleepless nights, your hands muddy, your back aching, a grimfect, Herbalists risked accusations of witchcraft. Some burned for cures, too effective or misunderstood. And the odd bit, some castles used spider webs as bandages. Their silk thought to clot blood. A trick you keep in your hut's rafters. Historians still argue whether herbalists were healers or mere gatherers of weeds. But you know you're the castle's quiet physician, mending what the nobles overlook. Morning means mixing. Back in the hut, you grind herbs in a stone mortar, the pestle heavy, your wrists straining as lavender and comfrey blend into a salve. You boil roots in a small pot, the steam sharp with willow bark. A fever breaker you'll slip to a laundress later. You measure carefully. A pinch too much could sicken, too little could fail. And the cook's boy still limps from a poultice you misjudged last year. You bottle tinctures, tie bundles of sage, and hang them to dry. Your hut, a forest of scents. You joke you're the castle's potion witch. But the physician's sneer keeps you silent. Your hands busy with the next remedy. Midday brings visitors. You sit by your hearth, chewing a crust and a sprig of parsley, its bite clearing the herb dust from your throat. The hut is warm. The fires glow soft, like the chandler's candles, but earthier. Alive. A turnspit dollkeeper knocks, his hand burned, and you smear aloe salve, wrapping it in linen. His grunt, your thanks. A kitchen maid follows, her cough rattling, and you give her a honeyed thyme syrup. Her nod a quiet bond. You clean your tools, scrubbing the mortar with sand. Your knuckles raw. The laundress's soap too harsh for your stained hands. Afternoon is more mixing. A poultice for a gong farmer's rash. A tea for a weaver's cramps. Your fingers green. Your eyes burning from steam. Evening comes, and you visit the servants' quarters, delivering remedies under torchlight. You slip a vial to the night watchwoman for her aching feet, her keys jingling like a faint echo of your work. The castle hums, the baker's loaves cooling, the weaver's loom still. You return to the hut, cleaning pots, stoking the hearth for tomorrow. You climb to your cot, your tunic stiff with sap, your skin tingling from herbs. You eat a cold pottage, left by the cook, and a hunk of bread, chewing slowly as stars gleam through a cracked shutter. You're not old, maybe 26, but your hands look weathered, stained and scarred. The nobles call you herb woman, their noses wrinkling at your earthy smell. But a lady once thanked you for easing her child's fever. You hold that close, a leaf in your heart. There's no escape from this. No herbalist becomes a physician. No mortar turns into a crown. But you know plants, how to soothe a burn with comfrey, calm a fever with willow. You've seen healers shunned, accused of dark arts. But you stay, because the castle needs your cures, because the servants need your care. A Kiat pride keeps you here. Not for coin, but for the moment, a cough eases. A wound closes under your touch. You lie back, straw pricking your skin, and listen to the hearth's faint crackle. The castle sleeps. The herbs dry. And for now, that's enough. You close your eyes, dreaming of meadows thick with yarrow, of hands unstained. Your work, a soft remedy that lingers in the night. Section 15. Porter's heavy loads. You're still moving through the castle's unseen veins, where the herbalist's earthy hut and the soft rustle of drying herbs linger in your memory. A quiet balm for weary souls. Now, you step into a world of grit and strain, where the air carries the dust of straw and the sharp tang of sweat-soaked wood. You're the porter, tasked with hauling crates, sacks, and barrels through muddy courtyards. your back bending under the castle's endless needs. Unlike the baker's warm loaves or the falconer's skyward calls, your work is a grind of muscle and mud, carrying what others craft to where it's needed. You sleep in a corner of the storeroom. The creak of carts, your lullaby. The weight you bear, your stubborn pride. You'd probably collapse under a flour sack in an hour. Unlike the herbalist who mixes remedies with light hands. But here you are, yoke on shoulders, hauling the castle's lifeblood. You wake in the early dark, your pallet in the storeroom's corner, damp and cold, the air heavy with the smell of grain and mildew. Your blanket, a patched sack, barely keeps the chill at bay. But you rise, joints stiff from yesterday's loads. You pull on a tunic, torn and crusted with dirt. Its weave thick with the scent of sweat and spilled ale. Your hands, calloused and bruised, ache as you flex them, and you slip on boots, soles worn thin from trudging cobbles. The storeroom, a stone vault by the castle's gate, hums with the faint rustle of sacks and the groan of barrels. The steward, a thin man with a voice like a lash, will check your deliveries by noon. So you grab a yoke, its wood rough against your neck, and start before the baker's ovens glow. Your first task is unloading. A cart from the village waits by the gate, piled with flour, firewood, and salted fish. Its wheels caked with mud. You heave sacks onto your yoke, each one heavy as a child. Your shoulders screaming as you trudge to the kitchen stores. The cobbles are slick, your boots slipping, but you brace yourself, knowing a spilled sack means a day without pay. You stack the goods, counting each one, your breath clouding in the cold. The scullery maid might envy your strength, but she'd never trade her pots for this ache. A grim fact. Porters often died young, their spines twisted or hearts strained from years of lifting. And the odd bit, some castles used porters to carry noble children in litters, a job you dodge, preferring barrels to bratty heirs. Historians still argue whether porters were vital labourers or just beasts of burden. But you know you're the castle's spine, carrying its weight without thanks. Morning means fetching. You haul water barrels to the brewhouse, your arms burning as you roll them across the yard. The brewer nods, busy with his vats, and you move on, carrying hay bales to the stables. Struff pricking your skin, the stable boys' horses watch, their eyes kinder than the steward's, who barks if a crate's late. You deliver cloth bolts to the weaver's shed, your back a knotted rope, and return for more. Never stopping. You joke you're the castle's pack mule, but the steward's glare keeps you quiet, your hands busy with the next load. Midday brings a brief rest. You sit on a crate by the gate, chewing a crust and a pickled onion, its bite sharp against the dust in your throat. The storeroom is cool, its shadows heavy, like the chandler's wax but rougher. Earthier, you mend a torn sack with twine, your fingers clumsy. The herbalist's salves a luxury you can't afford. A page darts by, kicking dust. Ignoring you, you nod to a laundress, her lye-stung hands matching your bruised ones. A silent bond. Afternoon is more hauling. Firewood to the kitchen, wine casks to the cellar, your boots sinking in mud as rain starts to fall, soaking your tunic. Evening comes, and you deliver the last loads. Charcoal to the bakehouse, oats to the stables. Your body, a map of pains. You check the cart, securing it for tomorrow. Your hands roar from ropes. The castle hums, the herbalist's fire glowing, the baker's loaves cooling. You return to the storeroom, cleaning your yoke, stacking crates, your tunic stiff with mud, You eat a cold pottage, left by the cook, and a hunk of bread, chewing slowly as stars glint through a cracked shutter. You're not old, maybe 27, but your back creaks like a drawbridge. Your shoulders broad, but bowed. The nobles call you loadman, their noses wrinkling at your sweaty smell. But a knight once tossed you a copper for a swift delivery. You keep it, a weight in your pocket. Proof, you're more than muscle. There's no escape from this. No porter becomes a steward. No yoke turns into a crown. But you know the castle's rhythm. How to balance a cask. A stack a crate to save space. You've seen men break, their backs giving out, or spirits crushed by the steward's lash. You stay, because the castle needs its goods, because the kitchen needs its flour. A quiet pride keeps you here. Not for coin, but for the moment, a cart rolls in. Its load delivered true. You lean back, straw pricking your skin, and listen to the storeroom's faint creak. The castle sleeps. The crate still. And for now, that's enough. You close your eyes, dreaming of fields without burdens, of hands unbruised. Your work, a steady step that lingers in the night. Section 16. Minstrel's wandering chords. You're still tracing the castle's unseen currents, where the porter's heavy yoke and the creak of his cart linger in your memory. A rhythm of muscle and mud. Now, you step into a world of music and firelight, where the air carries the twang of lute strings and the faint warmth of a hall's glow. You're the minstrel, tasked with strumming songs for nobles. Your fingers calloused, your heart masking hunger behind a practiced smile. Unlike the herbalist's quiet remedies or the baker's midnight need, your work is a fleeting performance, weaving tales of glory, while your own story goes unsung. You sleep in a corner of the servants' hall, the echo of chords your lullaby. Here's the crowd's fleeting claps, your fragile reward. You'd probably fumble a tune under noble eyes in a moment, unlike the porter who carries his loads with steady steps. But here you are, lute in hand, singing the castle's dreams. You wake in the late morning, your palate in the servants' hall cramped and cold, the air thick with the smell of straw and yesterday's ale. Your blanket, a tattered cloak, barely holds the chill. But you rise, joints stiff from last night's performance. You pull on a tunic, patched and faded, its weave dusted with tavern soot and the faint scent of rosewater, a gift from a village lass. Your hands, nimble but scarred, ache as you flex them, and you slip on soft shoes, soles worn from wandering roads and halls. The castle hums, its great hall, quiet now. But tonight it'll roar with lords and laughter. The steward, a man with a frown like carved stone, expects you ready by dusk. So you grab your lute, its wood warm under your fingers, and head to the courtyard to tune before the scullery maid's buckets drown your notes. Your first task is practice. You sit on a stone bench, plucking strings, your fingers dancing over frets to warm them. You run through old ballads of knights and dragons, love and loss. Your voice low, blending with the wind. The lute's tone must be perfect. A sour note could earn a noble's scowl or a thrown goblet. You tweak a peg, tightening a string, your ear sharp from years of taverns and courts. A kitchen maid passes, humming your tune, and you smile, but keep playing, knowing the Lord's taste leans to epic tales, not her simple songs. A grim fact. Minstrels often faced exile, or worse, if their songs mocked the wrong lord, their tongues silenced for a stray verse. And the odd bit, some castles paid minstrels in old clothes instead of coin. leaving you with a patchwork wardrobe you wear with flair. Historians still argue whether minstrels were artists or just wandering jesters. But you know you're the castle's voice, carrying its heart in chords. Midday means composing. You lean against a wall, scratching lyrics on a scrap of parchment. Your kill blunt, ink smudged from sweat. You weave a new verse for tonight, praising the Lord's valor, though you've never seen him fight. The words must flatter, but not too much, or the lady might roll her eyes. You hum, testing the melody, your stomach growling. Ignored. The weaver might envy your music, but she'd never trade her loom for this scrutiny. You joke, you're the castle's bardic puppet, but the steward's glare keeps you silent, your fingers strumming to perfect the tune. Afternoon brings a meal. If you're lucky, you sit by the kitchen door, chewing a crust and a scrap of cheese. Bartered for a song to a cook's boy, the courtyard bustles, the porter's cart creaking, the herbalist's basket swaying. You mend a string, your needle pricking your thumb, and polish your lute, its wood gleaming under your cloth. A noble's page sneers, calling your tune peasant noise. But you nod, eyes low, saving your wit for the hall. Evening is performance. You stride into the great hall, its torches flaring, nobles sprawled at tables. You bow, strum, and sing, your voice soaring over clinking goblets, your heart racing as the Lord nods approval. A lady tosses a coin. It lands in the rushes, and you scoop it up, smiling through the sting. Night deepens, and you play on. Your fingers roll, your throat hoarse. The feast ends. Nobles stagger off, and you collect your pay. A few coppers and a half-eaten pie. The castle quiets, the baker's oven cooling, the night watchwoman's lantern glowing. You return to the servants' hall, cleaning your lute, your tunic stiff with sweat. You eat the pie, its crust cold, and a hunk of bread, chewing slowly as stars shine through a cracked shutter. You're not old, maybe 28, but your hands look weathered, your voice rough from smoke-filled halls. The nobles call you song man, their noses wrinkling at your road dust smell. But a child once clapped to your tune, her eyes bright. You hold that close. A note in your soul, there's no escape from this. No minstrel becomes a courtier. No lute turns into a throne. But you know music. How to weave a tale in 3 chords. How to lift a hall with a single verse. You've seen singers vanish. Their songs too bold, or their luck too thin. But you stay. Because the castle needs its tales. Because the nobles need their mirror. A quiet pride keeps you here. Not for coin, but for the moment a song lands. Its echo lingering in the firelight. You lie back, strophe pricking your skin, and listen to the hall's faint hum. The castle sleeps, the lute still. And for now, that's enough. You close your eyes, dreaming of open roads, of chords soft as starlight, your hands unscarred, your work, a melody that lingers in the night. Section 17. Armourer's clanging forge. You're still weaving through the castle's quiet undercurrents, where the minstrel's lute chords and the faint hum of his ballads linger in your memory. A fleeting song in the firelight. Now, you step into a world of heat and steel, where the air rings with the clang of hammer on anvil and the sharp scent of charred metal. You're the armourer, tasked with forging shields, swords, and mail. Your arms burning, your hands scarred from sparks and steel. Unlike the porter's heavy loads or the herbalist's soft remedies, your work is a battle with iron, shaping strength for knights who never know your name. You sleep in a loft above the forge. The anvil's echo, your lullaby. The weight of your craft, your stubborn pride. You'd probably blister your hands in a minute, unlike the minstrel who strums with nimble fingers. But here you are, hammer in hand, forging the castle's defense. You wake in the early dark. Your cot in the forge's loft, hot and smoky. The air thick with the smell of coal and sweat. Your blanket, a singed wool scrap, barely cools the heat. But you rise, joints stiff from yesterday's hammering. You pull on a tunic, patched and blackened, its weave heavy with the scent of ash and oil. Your hands, rough and scarred, ache as you flex them, and you slip on thick boots, soles scorched from stray embers. The forge, a stone shed by the castle's armory, glows faintly, its hearth never fully cold. The master armorer, a broad man with a voice like thunder, will check your work at noon. So you stoke the fire, the flames roaring, and start before the baker's loaves even rise. Your first task is forging. You haul a bar of iron, heavy and cold, and thrust it into the hearth, the coals hissing as the metal glows red. You pump the bellows, your shoulders straining, the heat baking your face, sweat dripping into your eyes. You pull the bar out, its glow fierce, and swing your hammer, the anvil ringing with each strike. The metal bends, slowly taking shape, a shield rim or a sword blank, your arms trembling from the force. Sparks fly, stinging your skin, but you keep swinging, knowing a flawed piece means a knight's anger or a steward's lash. A grim fact. Armourers often lost hearing from years of clanging, their ears dulled by their craft, and the odd bit, some castles tempered steel with urine. It's ammonia hardening the metal, a stench you endure with gritted teeth. Historians still argue whether armourers were skilled smiths or just labourers of fire. But you know you're the castle's steel shaper, crafting its strength from raw iron. Morning means shaping. You hammer the shield's curve, your strikes precise, the metal cooling too fast, forcing you back to the hearth. You check a mail shirt, linking rings with pliers, your fingers blistered, each loop a test of patience. The master armourer watches, his grunt your only praise, his scowl a warning after last week's warped blade. You'd joke you're the castle's iron wizard, but his glare keeps you silent. Your hammer, steady to prove your worth, you oil a finished sword, his edge sharp, ready for a knight who'll never thank you. His glory built on your burns. Midday brings a pause. You sit on a stone by the forge door, chewing a crust and a sliver of salted pork, its tang sharp against the ash in your throat. The forge is a furnace, its glow fierce, like the baker's oven but harsher, unyielding. You clean your tools, scraping soot from the anvil, your knuckles raw. The laundress's soap too soft for your grime. A squire darts in, grabbing a helm. Ignoring you, you nod to a porter, his bruised hands matching your scarred ones. A quiet bond. Afternoon is more forging. A dagger for a lord's son. Your arms a knotted ache as you pound the steel, sparks biting your arms like angry flies. Evening comes, and you deliver a shield to the armory, its weight heavy, your steps slow on the cobbles. You leave a sword for the night watchwoman's captain, his nod, your only thanks. His armour gleaming from your labour. The castle hums, the minstrel's lute strumming, the herbalist's fire glowing. You return to the forge, cleaning hammers, banking the hearth for tomorrow. You climb to your loft, your tunic stiff with soot, your skin prickling from heat rash. You eat a cold pottage, left by the cook, and a hunk of bread, chewing slowly as stars shine through a cracked shutter. You're not old, maybe 29, but your arms feel ancient, scarred and heavy. The nobles call you Smith, their noses wrinkling at your smoky smell. But a knight once gripped your hand for a true blade. You hold that close, a spark in your heart. There's no escape from this. No armorer becomes a knight. No hammer turns into a crown. But you know steel, how to temper its edge, shape its strength, make it sing under your blows. You've seen apprentice kit, burned or broken by the heat. But you stay, because the castle needs its blades, because the knights need their shields. A quiet pride keeps you here, not for coin, but for the moment a sword gleams, its edge honed by your hands. You lie back, straw pricking your skin, and listen to the forge's faint hiss. The castle sleeps, the anvil still, and for now, that's enough. You close your eyes, dreaming of fields without fire, of hands unscarred. Your work, a strong blade that lingers in the night. Section 18. Scribe's inky fingers. You're still slipping through the castle's quiet undercurrents, where the armorer's clanging forge and the sharp tang of heated steel linger in your memory. A spark of strength in the firelight. Now, you step into a world of parchment and quills, where the air carries the faint must of ink and the soft scratch of nib on vellum. You're the scribe, tasked with copying manuscripts by candlelight, your fingers stained, your eyes straining to please lords who barely read your work. Unlike the minstrel's wandering chords or the porter's heavy loads, your labor is a silent dance of precision, inscribing words that outlive you but never bear your name. You sleep in a nook by the scriptorium, the rustle of pages, your lullaby, the weight of perfection, your constant burden. You'd probably smudge a page in a moment, unlike the armorer who hammers with steady blows. But here you are, quill in hand, writing the castle's legacy. You wake in the early dark, your cot in the scriptorium's corner, cold and cramped, the air thick with the smell of dust and wax. Your blanket, a thin wool scrap, barely holds the chill. But you rise, joints stiff from yesterday's hunched hours. You pull on a tunic, patched and ink-splattered, its weave heavy with the scent of parchment and old leather. Your hands, stained black and cramped, ache as you flex them, and you slip on soft shoes, soles worn from pacing stone floors. The scriptorium, a stone room by the chapel, glows faintly, its candles never fully out. The master scribe, a gaunt man with eyes like a hawk, will check your pages at noon. So, you light a taper, the flame flickering, and start before the baker's oven's warm. Your first task is copying. You sit at a slanted desk, a vellum sheet before you, heavy with the weight of a noble's charter or a monk's prayer. You dip your quill in ink, its nib sharp, and trace letters, each stroke deliberate, your wrist trembling from the cold. The words flow, Latin or the local tongue, their meaning distant. Your focus on the curve of an A or the line of a T. A single blot could ruin hours, earning the master's scowl or a day without bread. You work by candlelight, the chandler's tallow sputtering, its smoke stinging your eyes. A grim fact. Scribes often lost their sight from years of dim light, their eyes failing before their hands. And the odd bit, some castles used oak galls to make ink, their tannin boiled with iron. A recipe you mix yourself, your finger stained for days. Historians still argue whether scribes were scholars or mere copyists. But you know you're the castle's memory, etching its truths onto time. Morning means checking. You review yesterday's pages, your eyes burning, catching a missed letter or a smudged line. You scrape errors with a knife, the vellum forgiving but fragile, and rewrite, your hand steady despite the ache. The master scribe hovers, his breath sharp, pointing out a tilted S. You missed. You nod, swallowing a retort, remembering his lash of words over a botched deed last month. You joke you're the castle's ink monk, but his glare keeps you silent. Your quill, moving to prove your care. You bind finished sheets, stitching them with thread, your fingers pricked, ready for the Lord's seal or the chapel's shelf. Midday brings a pause. You sit by the scriptorium's window, chewing a crust and a dried apple, its tartness cutting the ink's bitterness on your tongue. The room is cool, its shadows soft, like the herbalist's hut, but drier. Dustia, you clean your kill, sharpening its nib with a blade. Your knuckles raw. The laundress's soap too harsh for your stained hands. A page darts in, grabbing a letter for the steward. Ignoring you, you nod to a weaver, her thread-worn hands matching your inky ones. A quiet bond. Afternoon is more copying. A chronicle for the Lord. Your back, a knotted ache as you lean. The candle's heat warming your face. Evening comes, and you deliver a finished manuscript to the Lord's solar. Eyes down, handing it to a clerk who doesn't thank you. You leave a prayer book for the chapel. The priests nod your only thanks. Its pages crisp from your labour. The castle hums. The armourer's forge cooling. The minstrel's lute strumming. You return to the scriptorium, cleaning quills, capping ink, your tunic stiff with wax. You eat a cold pottage, left by the cook, and a hunk of bread, chewing slowly as stars gleam through a cracked shutter. You're not old, maybe 25, but your eyes blur, your fingers stiff. The nobles call you Ink Man, their noses wrinkling at your musty smell. But a lady once praised your script's grace. You hold that close. A letter in your heart. There's no escape from this. No scribe becomes a scholar. No quill turns into a scepter. But you know words. How to shape a letter's curve. Preserve a deed for centuries. You've seen apprentice Keat. Their hands too shaky or eyes too weak. But you stay. Because the castle needs its records. Because the chapel needs its prayers. A quiet pride keeps you here. Not for coin, but for the moment, a page lies perfect. Its ink, a bridge to forever. You lean back, straw pricking your skin, and listen to the scriptorium's faint hush. The castle sleeps. The quill still. And for now, that's enough. You close your eyes, dreaming of fields of vellum, of hands unstained. Your work, a clear script that lingers in the night. Section 19. Gardener's earthy toil. You're still wandering the castle's quiet undercurrents, where the scribe's inky quills and the soft scratch of vellum linger in your memory. A whisper of words etched for eternity. Now, you step into a world of soil and frost, where the air carries the sharp scent of turned earth and the faint sweetness of crushed herbs. You're the gardener, tasked with tending vegetables and herbs in frozen plots. Your hands cracked, your knees soaked from kneeling in mud. Unlike the armourer's clanging forge or the minstrel's fleeting chords, your work is a slow dance with seasons, coaxing life from dirt to feed the castle's tables. You sleep in a shed by the garden, the rustle of leaves your lullaby, the harvest's yield your humble pride. You'd probably wilt under a winter's chill in a day. Unlike the scribe who writes in candlelit warmth, But here you are, Throwell in Hunt, nurturing the castle's roots. You wake in the early dark. Your cot in the garden, shed cold and damp. The air thick with the smell of loam and rotting straw. Your blanket, a patched sack, barely holds the frost at bay. But you rise, joints stiff from yesterday's digging. You pull on a tunic, mud-stained and heavy with dew. Its weave laced with the scent of time and earth. Your hands, rough and split, ache as you flex them, and you slip on boots, soles caked with clay from countless mornings. The garden, a walled plot by the castle's kitchen. Lie still, its rows dusted with frost. The steward, a man with a voice like gravel. He'll check your yield by noon. So you grab a trowel, its handle worn smooth, and start before the baker's loaves even cool. Your first task is weeding. You kneel in the cold soil, pulling chickweed and nettles from carrot beds. Your fingers numb, your breath clouding in the dawn. The frost bites, but you work fast, knowing a choked root means a lean harvest. And the cook's wrath over sparse stew is fiercer than a storm. You check the kale, its leaves brittle but alive, and pinch off yellowed bits. Your hands stained green. The herbalist might envy your garden, but she'd never trade her salves for this chill. You mound soil around leeks, protecting them from the cold. Your back aching, the dirt clinging to your knees. Ah, grim fact. Gardeners often died from exposure, their bodies worn by wet winters and meagre meals. And the odd bit, some castles grew onions near latrines, believing the stench warded off pests. A plot you tend with a grimace. Historians still argue whether gardeners were skilled growers or just dirt diggers. But you know you're the castle's feeder, sowing life from frozen ground. Morning means planting. You dig furrows for spring peas, your trowel slicing the earth, the soil heavy with frost. You scatter seeds, covering them gently, your hands trembling from the cold. You check the rosemary, wrapping its base with straw to shield it, a trick learned after losing a bush last winter. The steward once blamed you for a thin harvest, and you hauled manure for weeks. You'd joke you're the castle's earth wizard, but his scowl keeps you silent, your trowel moving to prove your care. You water the beds, hauling buckets from a stream, your shoulders burning. The laundress's yoke, a distant cousin to your load. Midday brings a pause. You sit on a stone by the garden gate, chewing a crust and a raw turnip, its bite sharp against the mud in your throat. The garden is quiet, its rows stark, like the scribe's vellum but alive. Breathing, you mend a broken trellis, tying it with twine, your fingers clumsy. The herbalist's salves, a luxury you rarely use. A kitchen maid darts by, snatching parsley. Ignoring you, you nod to a porter, his bruised hands matching your cracked ones. A quiet bond. Afternoon is harvesting, pulling carrots and cabbages. For your back, a knotted ache as you fill baskets for the cook. The frost nipping your fingers. Evening comes, and you deliver the day's yield to the kitchen. Eyes down, handing baskets to a scullery maid who doesn't thank you. You leave a bundle of mint for the brewer. His nod, your only thanks. Its scent bright from your labour. The castle hums. The armourer's forge quieting. The minstrel's lute strumming. You return to the shed. Cleaning tools. Banking the hearth for tomorrow. You climb to your cot. Your tunic stiff with dirt. Your skin prickling from cold. You eat a cold pottage, left by the cook, and a hunk of bread. Chewing slowly, as stars gleam through a cracked shutter. You're not old, maybe 30, but your hands look weathered. split and brown. The nobles call you dirt woman, their noses wrinkling at your earthy smell. But a child once marvelled at your roses. You hold that close, a petal in your heart. There's no escape from this. No gardener becomes a steward. No, trowel turns into a crown. But you know soil. How to coax a sprout from frost. How to save a root from rot. You've seen workers quit, broken by cold or hunger. But you stay, because the castle needs its greens, because the kitchen needs its stew. A quiet pride keeps you here, not for coin, but for the moment a carrot pulls free, its colour bright against the dirt. You lie back, straw pricking your skin, and listen to the garden's faint rustle. The castle sleeps, the earth rests. And for now, that's enough. You close your eyes, dreaming of fields thick with blooms, of hands uncracked. Your work, a green thread that lingers in the night. Section 20. Candle Snuffer's Final Glow. You're still gliding through the castle's quiet undercurrents, where the gardener's earthy hands and the soft rustle of her frost-kissed herbs linger in your memory. A whisper of life from frozen soil. Now, you step into a world of fading light and gentle steps, where the air carries the faint smoke of tallow and the hush of a castle settling into dreams. You're the candle snuffer, tasked with extinguishing the castle's lights. Your fingers sing, your eyes tracing the glow that guides its nights. Unlike the scribe's inky quills or the porter's heavy loads, your work is a soft closing, a final breath for each flame before dawn. You sleep in a nook by the servants' hall. The flicker of candles, your lullaby. The castle's rest, your silent pride. You'd probably trip in the dark in a moment, unlike the gardener who kneads the earth with steady hands. But here you are, snuffer in hand, easing the castle into sleep. You wake in the late evening, your cot in the servants' hall, cold and narrow, the air thick with the smell of straw and lingering wax. Your blanket, a patched wool scrap, barely holds the chill. But you rise, joints stiff from last night's rounds. You pull on a tunic, worn and faintly smoky, its weave soft with the scent of tallow and dust. Your hands, coal-used and warm, ache as you flex them, and you slip on soft shoes, soles hushed to keep the silence. The castle slows, its halls dim, the great hall's laughter fading. The steward, a man with a voice like stone, expects the candles snuffed by midnight. So you grab your snuffer, a thin metal cone on a stick, and start your rounds as the night watchwoman begins hers. Your first task is the great hall, where the last nobles linger, their goblets empty, their voices low. You move along the walls, snuffer raised, dousing tallow candles with a gentle press, each flame hissing out in a curl of smoke. The chandler's work, pale and smoky, winks goodbye under your touch, and you keep your eyes down, invisible to the lords who don't see you. You check the sconces, ensuring knowing better lingers, knowing a stray spark could eat the rushes and earn you the steward's wrath. The minstrel might envy your quiet, but he'd never trade his lute for this shadow dance. A grim fact, candle snuffers often burn themselves, their hands scarred from hot wax or careless flames. And the odd bit, some castles used candle stubs to mark time. Their burn, a crude clock you track to pace your rounds. Historians still argue whether snuffers were mere servants or guardians of the night's safety. But you know you're the castle's closer, sealing its light with care. Midnight means the corridors. You glide through stone halls, your snuffers tip warm, dousing candles in the chapel, the library, the Lord's solar stair. The air is cold, your breath soft, the silence heavy with the weight of sleeping lives. You pause by a tapestry, its nights frozen in thread, and snuff a flickering taper, its glow fading like the weaver's loom clacks. You check doors, not locked like the watchwoman's rounds, but for light that shouldn't be, a sign of carelessness or secrets. Once, you found a noble's candle burning unattended, and you snuffed it, saving a curtain but earning no thanks. You'd joke you're the castle's dreamkeeper, but the silence holds you, your steps soft to keep it. Late night brings the servants' quarters, where the scullery maid snores. The stable boy twitches in sleep. You snuff their candles, their stubs small, the chandler's cheapest work, and leave them in darkness, your touchlight as a breath. You pass the kitchen, its hearth low, and douse a lone taper, the baker's bread cooling nearby. The castle breathes, its pulse slow, the obalist's fire dim, the armourer's forge cold. You carry a small pouch, a habit from the watchwoman's salt, holding a wick you saved, a tiny relic of your work. Your hands, warm from wax, bear faint burns, but they're steady, trained to cradle light's end. As dawn nears, you finish in the chapel, where a votive candle burns low, its glow soft on stone. You hesitate, then snuff it, not for disrespect, but to guard the drapes. A lesson from a near fire last winter. The castle is dark now, your rounds complete, the snuffer heavy in your hand. You return to your nook, sitting a moment by the servants' hall, the air still, the stars faint through a cracked shutter. You eat a cold crust, left by the cook. It's tossed a faint, and sip water, your throat dry from smoke. You're not old, maybe 28, but your hands feel older, marked by wax and time. The nobles don't know your name, calling you light thief, but a priest once blessed your work. You hold that close, a glow in your heart. There's no rising from this. No snuffer becomes a clerk. No, cone turns into a crown. But you know light, how to end it gently, how to guard a castle's sleep. You've seen others quit, scared of dark or burned by wax. But you stay, because the castle needs its rest, because the flames need your care. A quiet pride keeps you here, not for coin, but for the moment a hall falls dark. It peace you're doing. You lie back, straw soft against your skin. The castle's breath, a gentle hum. The world is still. The light's gone, and you feel it settle, heavy and calm, like a blanket over stone. Your eyes grow heavy, the stars fading, your hands warm, your heart quiet. You dream of fields lit by moonlight, of flames that don't burn. Your steps a whisper that carries you into peace. For now, you rest. The castle safe, its darkness yours.